Good morning. Om Samgachatvam Samvaradvam Samvomnaham Sijanatam Deva Bhagayata Purve Sanjanana Upasate Samhano Mantra Samiti Samhani Samanam Manatsaha Chittamesham Samhanam mantram hapi mantrayevas samhanena vohavisha juhomi samhani va akuti samhana hridayani vaha samhanam astu vo mano yata vasu sahasati. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Will we come together for a common purpose? May our minds be united in the quest for higher wisdom. Common be our prayer, common our goal. Common be our purpose, common our ideal. United be our hearts, united be our intentions. Perfect be the harmony and the unity among us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. Good morning and Happy New Year. In case you're looking at my eye, yes, I do have a black eye. I'm a klutz, sorry. Just in case you're going, isn't that? No, it is a black eye. So, Happy New Year. Every year, we all make New Year's resolutions. It's a very common thing at the New Year to make New Year's resolutions. You know, it sort of makes sense because we sort of want to make a fresh start with everything. We might have done things last year that we wish we could have done better. We sort of want to do things more of, which we didn't do enough of last year. So the 1st of January is a real page turn. It's like, no, I want to make a fresh start, and this is what I'm going to do. So we make our resolutions. But New Year's resolutions are famous for not sticking. Over half the people who made New Year's resolutions had said that they had given them up by January 31st. And we might be one of those among them. So one way to avoid not blowing our New Year's resolutions is not to make a resolution in the first place. And that's what 32% of the population did. Either they said, you know, I don't want to make one more resolution that I can't keep, or they said, I'm pretty happy with my life. I don't want to resolve to do anything else. It's all going good. But 68% still wanted to make New Year's resolutions, and it was interesting. 3 things tied for first place. The first was eat better, eat more healthily, 37%. 37% was get more exercise. 37% was save money. Down there, it went sort of down there from there. And at focus on self-care, i.e. get more sleep, was 24%. 18% was read more. It's like, only 18%? Come on, you guys, really? 18%? 15% wanted to make new friends. 15% wanted a new hobby. 14% wanted a new job. And 13% wanted a new skill. Now, interesting, they kind of divided this up between male and female. The female was overwhelmingly exercise, eat better. The male was overwhelmingly get a new job, or number 9 on the list, which was drink less. I thought that was interesting. So the topic of resolutions is important, not only just for the new year, but resolutions, and resolution is a really important spiritual topic because we all need resolution. With resolution, we need to know, where we really want to go with our lives. People don't succeed in their New Year's resolutions for a variety of factors. Maybe they're just not interested in them. Maybe they're not committed to them. Or the more worrisome thing is maybe it's a simple lack of resolution. And that would be a problem. Resolutions, like New Year's resolutions, come and go. But resolution is something that we need, all of us, every day of our lives. Not only, it's a constant in our life, not only with our spiritual life, but in every aspect of our life. In order for anyone to succeed, we all need resolution. Which means like doing something with a purpose. We set out with a purpose, I'm going to do that. And we all need that. We all want direction in our lives. No one wants to be like one of those leaves going down the stream where the currents just take it here or there. We want to say what our direction is going to be, and we want to initiate the direction. We don't want to be at the mercy of everything else. So for that, we need to really have our own resolution. And often people find themselves in a place that stream has brought them where they don't like to be. So that's why they make New Year's resolutions. But that's also why we need resolution, a firm willpower, resolution. In the Hindu tradition, it's really important because we say when we build up our willpower, our resolution, we not only build up our strength, but we also give ourselves a lot more confidence, and it gives us much more freedom when we can actually build our will, because the will is very important in spiritual life. Willpower is important. Sri Ramakrishna said, when peasants go to the market and they need to get a bullock because you need a bull to take the plows around the fields, the farmers will test the bulls. They'll just touch their tails, and if they just lie down, the farmers are just going, nuh-uh, not the one for me. But if they jump and frisk about and show some spirit, that's the one they're going to that's the one they're going to get. Swami Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna said, he's one of the latter class. He's got a lot of, he jumps and frisks about. In other words, he's full of spirit within. And that's what we need. We need to have the kind of fire, that kind of resolution to do things. Sri Ramakrishna continued, he said, there are some people who have no grit whatsoever. They're like flattened rice soaked in milk, soft and mushy, no inner strength. It's like, ew, no one wants to be that person. No one wants to be soft and mushy with no inner strength. We just really don't want to be there. We want to be able to have that, to be able to get through what we need to get through in our life. So in order to do that, we need to build our resolve, our willpower, and we need to sort of develop our own strong inner compass, which is so that we're not wishy-washy, that we don't fall over when the wind blows, and also so that when adversity does hit, which it will, that we're not knocked over, we're not taken off our game, that we can move forward without being completely knocked out. You know, we all have times when we make a resolution, but we just don't keep it. And let's say, I'm not going to have any more sweets after January 1st. You know how long that lasts, right? Or I'm going to quit spending so much money. Or I'm going to take up Sanskrit. Or I'm going to learn to be more patient. Or whatever. And our resolutions are intact until someone brings in the dessert, or we see something that we really want to buy, and then we say, oh, I'll start saving money next month. Or we start memorizing Sanskrit declensions, and we think, oh my God, nothing is worth that. No way I'm going to do that to myself. So our intentions, our resolutions end up being like flattened rice soaked in milk. So we have to really examine ourselves and go, okay, so what happened with these resolutions? In small things, it probably doesn't really matter. But if our resolution is as weak in big things as in little things, then we got a problem. Then we have a real problem. For example, I may resolve that I will always tell the truth. I'm going to tell the truth. But maybe when we do that, we get a negative reaction from somebody. So we just start lying. And pretty soon it can be a real easy habit to just not tell the truth when it becomes difficult to tell the truth. Or we want to be faithful to our spouse, and we do until real temptation comes along, and we don't have that inner resolve to be able to do it. Or we would never dream of stealing from anybody, We would never do that, but we might be short on money, and so we borrow something with a full belief that we will reimburse, that we will take it back. We'll bring it back, and no one's going to know anything about it, or I'll repay them. And that just doesn't happen. It's all a very slippery slope, and the whole kingpin here is the will and developing our willpower. We know better, but we can't seem to control our impulses, and that's the problem. We all know people who've been in AA for years, and then out of nowhere they backslide. We probably all know people who've been drug-free for years, and they backslide or they OD. It's like, what happened? What happened? We all know people who promised to love, honor, and cherish, and they were, until they were faced with a temptation they couldn't overcome. And all of them knew better. They just couldn't withstand the sometimes tornado force of desire that overcame them. And maybe we're in that same, maybe we've all faced that ourselves. Most of us want to do the right thing. Most of us want to be that person who will always do the right thing. But sometimes we're not up to it. How many times have we heard people say, I just couldn't help myself, or against my better judgment, I fill in the blanks. In the Mahabharata, Duryodhana says, I know what is good, but I do not do it. I also know what is bad, but I do not stop myself from doing it. And he's kind of the bad guy of the Mahabharata. Now, Duryodhana is perhaps an exaggerated case, but what Duryodhana says isn't unique to him. It's a basic human problem. It's a human problem because we all know what we shouldn't do, and we go ahead and do what we know we shouldn't do. And sometimes we feel rather helpless. It's like, yeah, I know I shouldn't do it, but I'm just going to do it, and I'll do it right next time. Next time for sure. It's all about the will, and it's about how the will just seems to go AWOL at times. It's like we knew better, we want to do better, and somehow it just didn't happen. So what happens? What is it exactly that happens? Because I found that if you kind of pick it apart, it makes it easier to kind of deal with it rather than going into guilt, shame, and I didn't really blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's a human problem. Everybody deals with it. So what is the actual mechanism that happens? And then we go back to karma. Karma is often misunderstood, and it's the word is thrown around, which means like action, but the effects of action. We usually think of that being in the external world. But as much as it affects the external world, it affects much more our internal world, the mind. So every thought, every action we've ever had, our entire existence, long before we took this particular incarnation, every thought, every action lies in the mind as a samskara. Samskara. Its effects are there. We might not know it, and we might be completely unconscious of it. Often we are, but it is there, lying almost in wait. And we can think of samskaras as seeds, and they go from birth to birth. They attach themselves to the Atman. Those seeds attach themselves to the Atman and are reborn in the new body where the desires that we had and the effects of our past impressions will come and take a new birth in the perfect place and environment for these seeds to sprout. So we all have these seeds lying dormant or undormant in our minds. Given the right stimulus, they pop up and grow like those weeds that happen just after this rain. It's like, where did you come from? Our samskaras are like that. Samskaras are the effects of our previous thoughts and actions, and they go from birth to birth, and they produce desire from our old actions and thoughts. But for it to produce, for these samskaras to produce desire, there has to be some sort of stimulus, either internal or external. For example, True life story. I go to a cafe and I see a latte, someone sipping a latte, and I go, that looks pretty good. I think I'm going to order me a latte. So I go and I order myself a latte and I drink it. I go, wow, that was good. I really like that. So that one latte experience produced in me the samskara of a pleasurable experience. Ooh, I feel so alert now. It tasted so good, blah, blah, blah. It cost way too much money, but I don't have to think about that. So it's very easy for me to redo that experience. My one latte experience has produced a samskara, and this makes it so easy for that samskara in there to trigger another desire for another latte. The minute I drive by that cafe, the minute I remember the experience, or the minute I even smell someone else's cup of coffee, that memory and that samskara is awakened. So it makes it really easy for me to get a second latte. When I drive by that cafe, I think, oh yeah, they have lattes. I think I'm going to get another latte. That was so good. So if you do it twice, it becomes a little deeper samskara. It forms kind of a bigger deal. You do it by the end of the month. I've done it every day. I'm beginning to develop a habit for lattes. And when that habit becomes more intense and I do it every single day, I have to have a latte, it becomes an addiction where I can't imagine not having a latte. And I'll move heaven and earth to somehow get out of here and go get a latte. This is how addictions are formed. All sorts of this, I'm using a fairly mild example, but it can be on anything. It can be on alcohol, it can be on drugs, it can be on a sex addiction, a food addiction. Any sort of thing can become internet. All these things can become extreme. The mind is very susceptible to repetition because of these samskaras in our mind. Because of these previous impressions, we tend to repeat thoughts and experiences because that little groove in our mind caused by that seed is already there. So we tend to repeat it. So this is how addictions, habits, cravings are created from not only from this life, but from previous lives. Now what's important to remember is we're not helpless. We all have a will. And that will belongs to us and nobody else. That means that we have the desire to choose. My desire, I can either choose to grab that desire, yes, I'm going to get that latte. Or I can say, no, I don't need that. It's way too expensive. Who wants to take the time to do that? I can choose not to do it. It's my choice. That's where free will comes in. The desires are there from this and previous lives, and my samskara is there. But I can choose I can choose the will to say, no, I'm not going to do that. Why would I want to do that? And this is where willpower comes in and why it's so important. Because if I say yes to that latte, my desire plus my will together, I will get a latte, forms an intention. Once an intention has been formed, which is the will plus desire, action follows right afterwards. There will be no action if there's no will, if there's no desire. Everything that we do, everything our body and mind does, is because of will plus intention. We won't go out and do anything unless we have a will to it. Unless, of course, it's our heart beating or our lungs, but everything else has to do with our will plus desire. But we can choose. That's our ability to act on it or not. Now, obviously, the more time I act upon my desires for lattes, the stronger that samskara becomes. The more I avoid it and say, I'm not going to do that. I am not going to do that. The weaker that samskara becomes. But it's very important. Again, we can't stop desires, not only because we have desires not only from this life, but from last lives. If we look at our minds, we'll see desires coming through all the time. Yes, no, I want this, I don't want that, I want that. It's like, don't get hung up on it, don't feel guilty about it. It's the nature of the mind, it's the human condition. Watch them go through. However, it's our will that can say, yes, I'm going to grab it, or no, I don't want to do that. And the truth is, we don't have to act upon them. That's what makes us a slave, and nobody wants to be a slave. Nobody wants to be a slave of their own past impressions. We all want freedom because freedom is our real nature. So I think knowing this really helps in dealing with resolution and resolutions. We have to remember, again, the will is under our control, no one else's. It's not written in the stars that we have to do that. No, we have a choice. So that's why Swami Vivekananda said, matter is your servant. You are not the servant of matter. What does he mean? We have incredible strength within us. We haven't accessed it. So when we access the power of the mind, of our incredible will within us, we can move mountains. If we don't work on developing our own resolve, we won't be able to walk across the street without changing our mind and doing something else. We all know people who've been kind of like they haven't really done much in their lives. They had such potential, but never really followed through on everything. It's like they could have done that, they could have done that, they wanted to, they're frustrated, at the end of their lives, I could have been a contender. But they didn't because there was that resolve to get through, and that resolve is within us. So we can use that for our benefit, not only in spiritual life, but in every aspect of our lives. So how do we strengthen our will? Well, the Hindu tradition, of course, has techniques for that, as you would expect. The first one is what they call vairagya, or discernment. Using the power of our intellect to say, do you really want that latte? Do you really want to spend that much money on coffee with milk in it? Do you really want to have that relationship that's going to bring you pain? Do you really want to drink when you know you have a problem with it? If we can use our intellect, we can take a step back. And then we can remember, oh, I realize I have a samskara, and I have a desire, and I have a very strong desire because of this samskara. But you know what? I'm going to choose not to do it because I want to be stronger than that. We can use our intellect. That's really helpful. And it helps us keep us in the right direction when we can use our discernment, vairagya. But the intellect can be ignored. We all do it every day, right? I don't know about you, but I do. It's like, you know the right car to buy, but you like the salesman better in the other place, so you get the one that's more, that kind of thing. So we tend to often ignore the messages from the intellect. And that's why abhyasa, or practice, is so important. My guru used to say to me, meditate, 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 practice, 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 with that index finger going every single time. Practice, practice, practice. Why? It's so boring. Because, to use contemporary language, a new practice forms neural pathways. We create new neural pathways with our new practice. A new practice will create a habit. We create new samskaras, new healthy, wholesome habits that make us happy instead of being at the mercy of something we don't like being in the mercy of. So we can resolve to practice, and it's really important to make a habit of this practice. Now, the good thing is that when we create a habit and the will strengthens it, it becomes easier and easier. It's like, because we're in the habit of meditating, for example, when we don't meditate, it feels kind of yucky. It's like, what's wrong about, I haven't meditated yet. That's what's yucky. It feels like you haven't spiritually brushed your teeth or something. It feels so wrong. And when we create these new habits, they become easy and natural, and it begins to feel just right. It feels right. We feel right with ourselves. That's why it's so important to create these new neural pathways, create these new habits with abhyasa practice. Now, all this is fine until we have a huge wave of desire, of temptation, and we feel simply helpless. That's when we get out the last important technique, and that is prarthana, or prayer. Prayer is just amazing, and it really works. Prayer is extremely powerful because it directs all the forces of our mind and all the forces of our will into one kind of laser beam of good desire. Unless we're talking about, Lord, please give me that, let me win that lottery, I'm so in debt. No. Are they going to help you with that? Maybe not. Maybe not. But what's like, please give me the strength to overcome this. Absolutely that help will come. There's no doubt about it. No question whatsoever. Because we have mustered not only divine grace, but the strength of our own mind and will. That's why prayer is seen as so important that every spiritual tradition uses it. Some spiritual traditions, it will be basically you talking to your own higher mind. But they are part and parcel of every spiritual tradition because it harnesses the power of the mind, the will, and the heart to go into this very powerful direction. So all these things help us strengthen and develop our resolution. So once we strengthen our resolve in one area, we can move it around to other areas because once our mind has been strengthened and our will has been strengthened, we can just move it to wherever we need it. And it gives us so much more confidence and so much inner strength. We feel much more at ease. Like, this might happen, that might happen. It's like, well, whatever happened, fine. I can deal with it. We can all deal with it, and that's the truth. We don't think we can deal with it, but we can deal with it. So at the beginning of the talk, I mentioned that there were 3 resolutions that people had made this year. The top 3 were eat more healthy, get more exercise, save money. Well, I want to add some suggestions to these resolutions because I think they're kind of limited. I mean, these resolutions are not going to help a person in a tight place. They're not going to help us sort of deal with the problems within our own mind. We need to have resolutions that are going to kind of feed our soul, that will give us some joy and some long-lasting value. So my first suggestion for a resolution is, number 1, be kind. It doesn't mean being a doormat. It doesn't mean not having difficult conversations when difficult conversations have to be done. But they can always be done with kindness and always with respect. Being kind is an extremely important thing. Being unkind is not only unnecessary, but it does real harm, not only to the person we're unkind to, but also to ourselves. We're creating with ourselves not only bad karma externally, but what we're doing to our own mind internally. His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, be kind whenever possible. It's always possible. Succinct guy. Second one is be cheerful. Because that's who we are. Our real nature, the nature of the Atman and the nature of Brahman, this infinite divine existence, is Sat Chit Ananda, infinite being, infinite pure consciousness, and infinite joy. Joy is our real nature. If that's so, why should we be grumpy? No one likes being grumpy, and none of us like being around a grumpy person. It's a bummer. So don't be grumpy. No one likes being around people who are grumpy. No one likes people who are always criticizing others, who are criticizing the world, or are complaining about everything. It's a bummer. So none of us want to be that person who's a bummer to everybody else. Swami Vivekananda said, "What business have you with clouded faces? It is terrible. If you have a clouded face, do not go out that day. Shut yourself in the room. What right do you have to carry this disease out into the world?" So if we're grumpy and ill-humored, we affect other people. We're not only making it life tough for ourselves for no good reason, we're making it hard for others. It's a bummer. So be cheerful. My third suggestion is share. Not only financially, it's important to be generous, but share with everything. Share our time, share our energy, share our appreciation, share our goodwill. We all know it's important to be generous with money because we feel better when we share with others. And we all know that money doesn't make us happy. I mean, after all, the Beatles said, money can't buy me love, right? We all remember that. But we often forget that. And it's important to share what we have because nothing really belongs to us. Nothing. We just have it temporarily. It's on temporary loan from the universe. So who are we to hoard? Hoarding makes us unhappy, and it stops the universe from flowing in the way that it should flow. We're happier when we give than when we take. And everybody knows this, except for like 2-year-olds. So if we find ourselves reverting to a 2-year-old, give yourself a little talk in a corner and say, you know, this doesn't make you any happier. Give that 2-year-old a talk. But there's a catch. If we choose to give anything, whether it's praise or kindness or a gift or some service, we cannot expect anything in return, and that's the catch. Because we often say, I gave my niece a present and she didn't eat. I'm not going to give her a present again. Call her up, check the tracking. Like, did you get it? It's like, why didn't you thank me? And maybe we have to train children. It's like, but with others, we can't expect gratitude in return because we often assume, maybe even subconsciously, that there's kind of a bargaining process going on, tit for tat. I do this for you, and so you should be indebted to me. Does not work that way. It's our privilege to give, and it's our privilege to share. If we have more of something, maybe it's our time. Maybe it's our time. Maybe we need to spend some time with people who need some. Maybe we need to call our old aunt. Maybe we need to talk to someone who's really depressed. Maybe we need to spend some time with a person who feels that they don't have anyone in the world. Maybe we should really think about not being afraid of the homeless, so that's assuming they're not completely psychotic and scary, but at least smiling at them, giving them visibility. How are you doing? Are you okay? It doesn't hurt us anything. Sharing is sharing this infinite abundance that is the universe, where we live in joy and infinite existence and infinite consciousness. It's like, what is so hard? Why should we want to keep all that to ourselves? Share the joy, share appreciation. Sharing also means not being resentful and jealous of others when they get something or achieve something. It's often really easy to feel like this rancor coming up. It's like whether they got a house or a new car or a better job or a better spouse or a new position, or maybe that person got a degree, or maybe they just got a lot of praise. And we think, I didn't get any praise, and I did that. That person praises that person, but not me. It's like, leave it alone. Leave it alone. Share. We have to play well with others. Sharing means allowing others to be joy, and it also means being joyful in others' joy. We'll find ourselves so much happier if we rejoice in other people's happiness, rather than some people think that happiness is like this thing, like this big, like a big pizza. And if somebody gets something good, they're taking a slice out of my pizza. That means I have less happiness coming up because they got whatever I think I should have too. It doesn't work that way. Happiness is infinite. Joy is infinite. We should be, when we rejoice with other people's good fortune, we get a lot more joy ourselves. And that's where we should be. Give service, number 5. Again, giving service doesn't mean one of our nuns and some of our devotees work very hard at Transition House every month, feeding the poor, feeding the homeless. What we do doesn't have to be heroic. It can be a kind word to someone who's really depressed. It can be giving a call to a person that we were avoiding calling. It can be joining a group to give service in this town. There's a lot of them. It can be helping a kid who's really unhappy. Talking to old people when they feel that when everybody's ignoring them. Being available to others. It's like our time is more precious than our money. And sometimes we guard our time more than we guard our livelihood. But maybe that's just what that person needs. Maybe they're getting us at an inconvenient time, but maybe the most important thing we will do that whole week is talking to that person. And we don't think we're doing anything, but it will mean a lot to that person. That's what I mean by service. And we understand, too, that we're not doing anything for anybody. It's our privilege to be able to do something that can be helpful to somebody else. That's our privilege. 7, don't ignore your body or your mind. You know, the body and mind are our only vehicles this time around, and we have to take good care of them. We're so lucky that we live in paradise here. We have a farmer's market and fresh vegetables and fruits 12 months out of the year. We have the ability to get fresh, good, nutritious food, and we can utilize that. We can also remember that it's most of the time it's really gorgeous here. Get outside. Go for a walk. Go for a hike. Go out and weed. Just step outside and sit in a park. But get off the computer, get off being inside, and be outside and appreciate the glory of where we happen to live. It's just, how many people have this ability to do that? We're not in a polluted city that we walk inside, we have to, put a mask outside. Welcome to Calcutta. We live in a place that's healthy and a fairly happy place where there's lots of places available for us to get outside and move around. We should do it and not think that we really need to do something that afternoon on the computer. We probably don't really have to do it. We probably get one of those samskaras and addictions that we keep feeding. Also, the mind has to be treated as well as the body. That means we think 1,000 times before we put not organic, no GMO food in our bodies. Oh my God, is that food clean? Oh my God, it's got preservative. Oh my God, it's got this and that. It's like we put all sorts of garbage in our minds and we don't think twice about it. But the mind is extremely susceptible to outside influence. That means that when we watch television, when we watch something on a video, that if we have that it's making an impression in our minds, those samskaras, they don't go away. They do not dissolve over time. You can't wash them away with good thoughts. They are still there, and those samskaras will sprout. So we have to be careful of the company that we keep. If we find that being around a person makes things in us come up that we don't like about ourselves, we should avoid that person. They're not good for us. They're not helping our minds. They're putting our minds down. The problem is the mind, by its very nature, goes down like a rock rolling downhill. So we have to make the effort to put it up. And that means we have to be really careful what we put into our mind. I'd finished this really difficult project, and I wanted to treat myself. I'm not a big person I don't watch TV for the most part and don't watch Netflix for that, but I wanted to treat myself. So I thought, I want to watch a series. So I looked on, and I'd seen Downton Abbey, that was wonderful. So I looked online, what's the best serial to watch? The best, series to watch. So I looked online, the best series, and all coming up, and number one was this thing about Baltimore, The Wire. And I thought, oh, good. And sure enough, I started watching it, and I got addicted. Oh, my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Oh, my God, the acting was so good. I mean, the plot was so good. Everybody and the characterizations were so good because no one was altogether good, no one was altogether bad. I mean, it was absolutely brilliant. But I noticed after a while that my language was like, where did that come from? Even things coming into my mind that I didn't vocalize was, oh my God, where is that coming from? It's like, oh, it's The Wire. So it's like, I'm not going to watch that anymore. So we don't even think about it. We think so much and worry so much about whether the food that we took in isn't healthy, but what about the garbage that we put into our minds? What about the stuff that we put in our minds that incites our anger, our hatred, our lust, our greed, our demeaning ideas towards women or minorities, or things like that? If we're watching something like that, we have to ask ourselves, why am I choosing to do this to myself? Because again, these impressions do not go away. It isn't like you can go and pray for half an hour and they'll just be magically removed. They do not go away. They are with us until we achieve absolute, complete liberation, moksha, when the mind itself is burnt and all the impressions are gone, both good and bad. Until then, we're stuck with it. So we have to be really careful about the garbage that we willfully put in our mind. The other thing is we need to make a habit of meditation. I talked about how important the value of meditation, but it's really important to make a habit of it. Holy Mother Sarda Devi said, meditation is like the rudder of a boat. It keeps us on course. So unless we do it, we will find ourselves sort of getting off track. Now, by meditation, I don't mean sitting outside in the garden. I don't mean sitting quietly and relaxing. I don't mean going to a forest and just feeling my oneness with the forest. I don't mean walking really, really slowly and mindfully. That's not meditation. Meditation is concentrating the mind on the divinity within our hearts and stilling the waves in our mind. It's not easy. It's the hardest thing we'll ever do because as we know, the mind's going, desires are coming in, ideas are coming in. We sit to meditate, and we remember that we left the kettle on. We sit to meditate, and we think, I should have told her that. She should never have said that to me. And all of a sudden, we're down the block, and our body is sitting there, but our minds aren't. So you have to drag it back, and that's why a habit is so important. Because otherwise, because it is difficult, we will avoid it. We'll think, oh, I'll do it tomorrow morning. I'll do it tonight when I get back from work. But we're too tired when we come back from work, so we end up putting it off. Meanwhile, it's too easy for our mind to get sort of out of whack. We need that to charge our own battery. If we can't charge our own battery, our life becomes really arid. We need to be able to do that. So, making also a habit, before I forget, the Bhagavad Gita said, the mind can be our greatest friend and also our greatest enemy. We want it to be our friend because there's nothing worse than being stuck in this and having it being our enemy. And I think we've all known people who their mind was their worst enemy, like the mentally ill, for example. But we can also be obsessive, we can be angry, we can be hateful and spiteful, and that's a terrible universe to be stuck in. That's a bad bardo. So we want to make sure that the mind is our friend, that it will be here to help us when we need it. My 9th suggestion, make a habit of inspiring reading. I don't mean books with happy endings. I mean things that will inspire us to continue our spiritual life. Things that will make us think, yes, I'm on the right course. Yes, spiritual life is the right thing. Yes, something that makes us want to meditate. Something that makes us want to be with holy people. Something that makes us want to, that elevates our mind. Not something with, not chicken soup with a whatever. Something that will make us, inspire us, and will to inspire us and motivate us to keep up our spiritual life. Because otherwise, the mind by itself will just go, as Shankara says, the mind is like a ball going downhill. And in the Sanskrit, he goes, ta-ta, 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 ta-ta. And you can actually hear the ball going down the stairs. That's the nature of the mind. So we have to go out of our ways to make it go up and keep it at a higher level. And spiritual reading is a wonderful thing. Also, there's wonderful things on YouTube. On YouTube, you can see some great videos of Swami Sarvapriyananda, Swami Tyagananda, some of these really are Swami Sarvadevananda. Really, and there's podcasts, so that when even we're stuck in a car, we can listen to things that elevate our mind instead of just listening to the news, which can be so depressing. It isn't like I'm saying ignore the news, but we can't make it our life. My 10th and last suggestion for the new year is that remember that this life is very temporary. Whether we live a month or 100 years, it's all really short. In the space of eternity, our life is like not even not even the whisker on a kitten. It's really, really short. So we have to make the best of it because we don't know when it's going to come to an end. As we learned from the mudslides and the fires, we don't know when it's going to end. It can come very much by surprise. So we want to make sure that we're living the life we lived up to the moment we depart. We can't say, I'm going to postpone it, do it later, because we might not have a later. It might be, we're not here tonight, or tomorrow, or next week, or next month, or 10 years, or 30 years. But we know it's all temporary. None of us get out of here alive, thank God. We're all going to go, so we have to not, it's not depressing and it's not morbid to think of the fact that this is a temporary situation. Given that, how do I live my life? If today is the last day of my life, what do I want to do today? What am I going to change about my life today? Well, I will try to be more patient, more kind. I'll try not to snap. I will spend my time in some meditation. I'll do some holy reading. Go outside and appreciate the glory of what's there. I'll remember to tell people that I love them because I might not have that opportunity later. I'll remember to tell people how grateful I am for them because I might not have that opportunity later. I will remember all the people who've helped me in this life because I might not ever be able to reach them, but I will remember that I didn't get here alone, and everything that whatever has happened to me is because of the grace of so many other people. I'll remember to be profoundly grateful to this place and to my spiritual teacher and all the spiritual teachers that we've had here. What a blessing to be able to have this. So we also have to remember that what we get upset about is almost always, nearly all the time, not worth getting upset about. It's just not worth it. Because remember that this too shall pass. This too shall pass. Whether it's something good, this too shall pass. Whether it's bad, this too shall pass. It's all temporary. So we can't afford to get caught up in the small stuff because it's a precious day with a precious mind that we might have just thrown down into the trash can because we decided to get upset about something that's really, in the big picture, not worth it. Not worth getting upset about. Remember that this life is transitory and temporary except for the one thing that isn't temporary and transitory. And that is the Atman, the divine self within us. The Atman is the only thing that does not die, that will not be reborn, that is with us 100% of the time, that will never leave us. Even our most beloved ones will leave us. We ourselves are not here for a long time. Only the Atman stays. Only the Atman is our only strength, our only resource, and our only security. That's the one thing in the whole universe we can depend on, is that infinite divine self within. Which means we have my wish for everybody is that we try to remember that divinity every day. Try to manifest it in our lives and try to remember it, to see it in all beings. Thank you and Happy New Year. And if you know this chant, please join me. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamataya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Filled with Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman flows all that is. From out of Brahman flows all, yet is Brahman still the same. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all.